guys that also had some back and forth this upcoming weekend on Top Ranks broadcast. It's official. Josh Taylor, Teofimo Lopez, June 10th. And it's going to be at the Hulu Theater?
The Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden, or as I still call it, the MSG Theater, as do most people, because, no disrespect to Hulu, because, we love Hulu. But it's just a long-ass name. And we get it. Sponsorship purposes. It's still the Madison Square Garden Theater.
Yo, man, we might want to be with Hulu one day, so I'm going to call it the Hulu Theater.
yeah, that's valid. Look, right? I was watching Abbott Elementary this weekend, you know what I mean, on Hulu.
I love Abbott Elementary.
Okay, we got to talk about that because I have some thoughts.
Yeah.
I just started it, though. I'm like 7 episodes
in. It's so funny, dude. It's my favorite show, but go
really?
on.
Oh, shit. Okay.
It's hilarious.
Right. We have 2 totally different favorite shows. Mine is Narcos, but that's another story for another day.
No, like, it's my favorite show right now to watch. Okay. My favorite show of all time is probably a tie between The Wire, Breaking Bad, and Sopranos.
Oh, okay. So you're okay. But that's like kind of like an easy, like, like a lot of people would
have
to. That's like saying Jay-Z's your favorite rapper ever. Like, Matt.
But he's not. He's not. He's
all
not,
right.
though.
Anyway,
but yeah.
Let's see. This is the show we actually want to do. But anyway, no, I'm kidding. Look, I'm very excited for this fight. Josh Taylor versus Teofimo Lopez. It's going to be for the WBO World Championship at 140 pounds super lightweight, which Josh Taylor has had for a long time. He has not fought since air quotes beating Jack Catterall. Because a lot of people thought Jack Catterall could have won that
fight. Catterall won that fight.
Okay.
Fair. It was in Josh Taylor's backyard. That was a robbery. And they didn't even get that rematch. Josh Taylor also had to vacate his titles. Remember, keep in mind that he was undisputed.
That was February 26th of 2022, not 2023. And if you look at Josh Taylor's resume, otherwise, outside of like the World Boxing Super Series, where he had to fight some serious competition, and then air quotes again beat Regis Prograis at the end, which I thought it was a draw.
Yo, he did beat Jose Ramirez in a fight where I thought Jose Ramirez didn't look like himself.
Yeah, look, that's his best win, is the Jose Ramirez fight, right? And look, Regis Prograis said for Jose Ramirez looked like shit against Richard Coleman, but that's not the story for another day. The point of it is Josh Taylor, 2 of his main 3 wins. I'm just gonna let that phone ring. I ain't picking that shit up. 2 of his main 3 wins, you have questions about. And I think that as it pertains to this fight in particular, Teofimo Lopez has a lot of questions about him because he just, air quotes again, Shantelle, beat Sandor Martin in his last fight, in a fight that some people think should have been a draw, or Sandor Martin beat, and he actually was knocked down for the first time in his pro career, Teofimo Lopez was. And up until then, he's looked pretty awesome, except for the George Kambosos fight, which he lost because he fought, in my opinion, overly emotional and was trying to just get the knockout and didn't fight a smart fight. But this
wasn't Teofimo Lopez was also knocked out by George Kambosos Jr.
Actually, yeah, you're right. So the Sandor Martin was the second time in his career that he's been knocked down. Thank you for the correction. Ultimately, though, this shit should not be at the theater. Why isn't this at Madison Square Garden? And we're going to actually break down this fight a little bit because I want to get your thoughts on it. But why is this shit at the theater? For people who don't know, Madison Square Garden has a capacity of above 18,000, 19,000, something along those lines, right? Sub 20,000. The theater is like 5,600, something like that.
That's small. I didn't know that. Like, why is it at the theater?
It's maybe 6,000. And I'm like, yo, Teofimo Lopez is from New York. I think he's a draw. Josh Taylor is from the UK, and UK fighters, they can do well here in terms of like selling out, whatever the case would be. I don't know if you'd sell out the Garden, but I think you can get more than 6,000 people. And why is this at the Garden? And why isn't this at the Garden? And these guys also, they lent voice to that. Like, they said it on the broadcast. They were like, this should be in the big house, and it's not.
Depending on who's on the card as well, Xander Zayas, is he going to be on the card?
He better be. That's the day before the Puerto Rican Day Parade. He fucking better be.
Which is one of the biggest days in New York to have the boxing match ahead of time in New York. Like, that's how it usually goes, right? You have the boxing fight, Puerto Rican Day Parade the next day. So I think, is this not a fight that would sell out MSG? Because I think it would be pretty close to selling out. It's kind of interesting for me because Teofimo Lopez, we know he is a guy that's from that area, fighting Josh Taylor, lots of back and forth. And this is a questionable fight, right? Because we're questioning, did Josh Taylor beat Jack Catterall? He didn't, but they said that he did. And then Teofimo Lopez, I'm a big Teofimo Lopez fan, and I think he lost that fight against Sandor Martin.
Really?
I think
I had him winning 95-94. I had him winning by a point.
That's how close it was, though, where I would have been okay with it being a draw. I think I was happier with it being a draw. I don't think he necessarily beat him, but that was a fight that was very, very close. So why isn't this fight at MSG? Because I think it could sell like 18,000 tickets.
I think it could come close at least. Like comparatively, Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, which objectively is a bigger fight, that's sold out MSG, but I feel like this isn't far from that caliber wise, right?
I would say it's on the same level. I know that one was a little bit different because it's Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, but still.
But Teofimo Lopez is legit. Like, he still has cachet. He's not somebody who passes prime. It's just like you have questions.
He's a young guy.
Yeah. You just have questions and, about like, is he going to be there mentally and things of that nature? And then Sandor Martin had a good enough performance to where some people like Shantelle believe he won, and some people like myself think that it was a point away. And honestly, if you told me, hey, Regis Prograis is going to defend his title against Sandor Martin, who's one of the top contenders according to the WBC at 140. Fight. And if he did that right now, even after a loss, I would be like, yeah, that makes sense. That's actually something that makes sense. So I think with this fight, it should be at the Garden. But in terms of breaking it down stylistically, right? Let's do this briefly, which we're going to get into more as we lead up to it. I'm hoping to be at this fight. Potentially, we'll just leave it there for now. And I think with this fight, though, it's interesting because Josh Taylor is a southpaw who kind of fights like a bully, kind of tries to use it in the way Sebastian Fundora does, but I think he's better at it, where he tries to use his size and brawl on the inside.
He knows how to use his distance. He knows how to use his distance. We saw that against Jose Ramirez.
Yeah, and this is something he was trying to do against Regis Prograis, and then there were a lot of exchanges on the inside in that fight. The World Boxing Super Series, a fight that I want to rewatch, by the way, see if I score it the same way, a draw. And I think that's going to be interesting for Teofimo Lopez to have to deal with, because this is not going to be somebody like Sandor Martin, where Sandor Martin was trying to counter, was moving away, was giving him. He's one of those guys who's a classic tough guy to look good against, right? And he can also beat you when you're off your game, which he almost did. Teofimo Lopez is going to have to deal with somebody who's bigger naturally, who's going to try to bully him on the inside. And Teofimo Lopez, I think, is going to be boxing a little bit more and countering and things of that nature. And that's going to be interesting to me because he has the power, the one-punch knockout power, to catch a Josh Taylor who's been down to Jack Catterall in the past, who's not as big of a puncher. So I think stylistically, this is a fascinating fight in that regard.
And I do think Teofimo Lopez Jr. is a better fighter than Jack Catterall. That Jack Catterall fight kind of exposed Josh Taylor for me. Because going into that fight, I was like, man, he looked really good against Jose Ramirez. Keep in mind, Jose Ramirez didn't look like the Jose Ramirez that we're used to seeing. There was also a big delay before they went into that fight. Josh Taylor hasn't fought since the Catterall fight, right? So I'm also thinking, is there going to be a little bit of rust for Josh Taylor heading into this fight? Because we've seen Teofimo Lopez fight recently, and sure, it wasn't that great of a performance, but at the same time, Teofimo Lopez, when I'm seeing him talk about this fight, it seems like he's locked in again. It seems like the Teofimo Lopez that we were seeing before he fought Lomachenko. And that's the Teofimo Lopez that I think he's going to give Josh Taylor some problems, because he's a way better fighter. And I'm going to say this on the line. This is no disrespect to a guy like Jack Catterall. Way better fighter than Jack Catterall. I think Teofimo Lopez is going to, I think there's a possibility that he could get a knockout in this fight, because Jack Catterall was landing on Josh Taylor. And of course, Josh Taylor uses his size really well. But I think if Teofimo Lopez can use his skill, box him, use his great footwork that he has, and land some big shots on him, I think he gets it done against Josh Taylor.
So to your point about the rust, and we'll say this and then move on to our next topic. Teofimo Lopez fought twice since Josh Taylor's last fight. Teofimo Lopez, you remember, lost to George Kambosos November of 2021. Fought.
Can we stop on that for a second, though? Because in that George Kambosos Jr. fight, I think he just didn't take his opponent seriously.
Yeah.
He was like, yo, this is going to be a layup. I'm going to just knock him out. And George Kambosos Jr. had a good game plan and just outboxed him and moved around the ring really well. So I don't think that was a Teofimo Lopez, who was also going through a lot of stuff outside the ring. I don't think that's the Teofimo Lopez that we should be judging, because we know that he's not that guy that he was in the ring that night.
But if he's not on his game again, he could also lose the fight. So it's not to say like he's going to definitely be on his game now, even though he sounds like it now. Ultimately, we'll see how training camps go and things of that nature. But
yeah,
he knocked out Pedro Campa in his return in August of last year, who just went to distance with Brandon Lee. Another story for another day. And
Teofimo Lopez, I was at that fight. He essentially, he took a lot of hits, but he also made it look easier than Brandon Lee did.
Way easier. But again, another story for another day. Brandon Lee, prospect, almost 30 fights into his career. And Teofimo Lopez, I think that in the Sandor Martin fight, which we've talked about, like I think there's something he took away from that fight that I don't think we're going to see again. But ultimately, we'll see how it plays out. But fascinating fight. I'm willing to bet that Teofimo Lopez is going to be a slight betting favorite, and you're just sort of banking on he's going to be focused. Like, I think the mentality and people trying to guess where he is going to be a big narrative coming into this fight. Whereas I think Josh Taylor, the perception of him is going to be a little bit more even keel. And I think both of these guys are very, very capable of losing this fight. So it's fascinating.
Yeah, and I'm not sleeping on Josh Taylor. I think he's a good boxer, man. I mean, at one point he was undisputed. Let's not sleep on that. But his performance against Jack Catterall, brutal. He lost that fight. It was a robbery in broad daylight, and he hasn't fought since that fight. So I'm not rolling with Josh Taylor on this one. If he comes in and fights a lot better, great, because I want to see a competitive bout. But yeah, I'm rolling with Teofimo Lopez Jr. I'm going to say that already when we do the breakdown. You know who I'm going to take, but we're going to